Welcome back, tutorial 2. So today we're going to run through making this. It's a slightly more, well, it's a very complex design compared to what we did last time. Now, what's always important with a slightly more complex design is to have a good understanding of what you want to do. So I've gone on to Affinity Designer, but you can use Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever your heart desires, and I've very quickly made a mock-up of the website. So using this mock-up, we should be able to quickly try and translate it into code. This isn't the most complex website, but we're certainly getting a lot further along. So yes, it's always the first button. I've broken it down. I haven't got every single div there, but I've got the vast majority. And now with this one, I'm not supplying any HTML. We're going to be doing it all ourselves. So I'm just going to open up Code Anywhere, my preferred editor. You can follow along using JSBin if you do not have your own web server available. Let me just get into the correct directory. Because in tutorial last time, no, tutorial 2. Oh, and I accidentally pressed the hash. Let's try that again. Pardon me. Okay, it's just being slow. Well, we'll delete this folder anyway. We do not need it. And so we can open up tutorial 2 and we can create our index.php file. And then alongside we can create our main.css. I'm not sure if we'll need it. I think we'll leave JavaScript out for today. Optionally, you can look into that yourself and you can see if there's anything you'd like to add to your solution. Let me just clear some space on my desk. So we've currently got a blank, empty starting point. Now if we go back to tutorial 1, we've got this. So I'm just going to copy this over, and then I'm going to show you what you need. So this is the starting point. So if you haven't created just a little, maybe a text file somewhere, or you could even create a HTML file somewhere on your computer to get to this point quickly, we can call this, what did we call the last one? Design example 1, we'll call this one design example 2. And then we've got the CSS file linked. That'll all be connected because we're in the new directory here. And then for the CSS, now we've got the reset class that I recommend, so I'm just going to take it over. This is what I've used for making most of my websites. Now, what I have noticed is you don't need that. That's part of the DACCAA UI, so it's up to you. I mean, this section here means that when you hover over buttons, it fades to the other colour rather than just changes, because it can do that. This is just affecting what the placeholder is, and now a placeholder is this, so you can see that inside the text box it's got text in the background and you can type over it. That's the placeholder, so the placeholder text is whatever's shown behind, and so this here will style that text. The rest is just things like setting fonts and resetting the paddings and margins. So if that's tutorial 1, this is tutorial 2, so we should be good to get started. Now none of this is scripted. I've not worked out the solution beforehand, so we could easily run into issues along the way. But I wanted to do a slightly more complex version so you could see how the basic principles from the last tutorial get taken and expanded upon for this one. So I suppose let's begin, and this will also give you an idea of the flow that I use to build. So I mean, I'm probably going to base it from the actual mock-up rather than the rough drawing, but you know, if I need more assistance from the other, I can look at that. And so to begin with, we're going to start with the top. You'll notice everything's deliberately kind of blocky, and that's what most websites are to start with, but some have shape in, and that's slightly more complex, so we're just going to keep it simple for now. We're just going to keep it rectangles, squares, and try and get that going. This image here was from Pixabay, so if you want any royalty-free images, I'd recommend Pixabay. And let's begin. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this, and now in our head we've got to think about how we're going to break this down into blocks. And you'll notice that we have this here. You see the white space down here. This means we've got a max width. So this is when the page will no longer stay the full width of the browser. Now the easiest way I've found to do this is to have a div for the outside, so we can colour it grey, and then have another div which will go max width and is displayed, pardon me, in the middle. And I don't know if you can see my cursor because I did have a glitch last time where you couldn't, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create this div here, and you'll see what I mean with this. So this would be an example of another div. So you got this div here, the whole grey, and then inside that div you'll have this one which will keep it to the max width. It obviously won't be coloured, so it will be hidden, but it will allow us to see that. And then these two elements with the text I'd have as a div as well. Well, there'll be links, so I mean it's up to you if you want that, because you can force a link to have a lot of div-like classes, so it's whatever you see is easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the class of top, just nice and simple, give it a name of top. Inside I'm going to call this bit inner for the inner section, and then we can have the phone and the email. Now with these, I believe you can specify, my bad, tell, and then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever the number is, and then that will tell a phone, if it clicks it, that it's to make a telephone call to that number. And you can do mail to with an email, and you can specify an email such as Danny@DACCAA.com, and when clicked that will allow the person to email that address. One thing to note is if you put this in a website, it is at risk of being spammed. So what you may want to do is there's different ways you can hide this. You can convert it into HTML tags, and that tends to fool the average spam bot, but then the browser will still render it fine. It's up to you. You can look into this yourself. So that's what I'd say is the basic layout for the top. Now if we go over to the tutorial and then into tutorial 2, you'll see that we've started to get this page to form. Now I'm just going to hop over to the CSS because I want to get this top bit done first before we move on. So I'm going to say .top background color. This is how we set backgrounds. You can alternately just use background. It tends to be habit. Background you can set multiple things, but say you wanted a background image, you can have a background image and a background color, and you can have them both running. But if you've just used background, you cannot have both. So that's one thing to bear in mind. So I'm used to using color. I'll use background color. So we want a grey. Let's try 5. Let's see how dark that is. Does that match? I mean, I can have a look at what colour this is. This is okay. So I'll put this in here, and we'll have a perfect match. And oh, it's actually darker. Now, what I'm going to do is declare inner, and I plan to use inner in multiple divs, so I'm going to keep it slightly less specific in that I'm going to say it's going to display block. It's going to have a max width of 1600 pixels, and I'm going to say it should be margin 0 auto. So if you remember from last time, the margin 0 auto will keep it in the middle when paired with display block. Max width 1600 pixels will mean that it can only ever be 1600 pixels, and at that point it will stop. And then width 100% will mean it will always be 100% of the screen until it hits that size. So we should see, there we are, it's already been moved. Now we're going to come down here. I'll show you an example. We can say .top.inner, and this was what we touched on last week. So only the .inner inside of .top, so with the class inner inside of top, will be affected by this. So we could have as many of the inner divs on the page as we like, and only the one inside .top will be affected. So we could add something like padding 20 pixels. I mean, it depends where you want the padding. There's some padding. I'd imagine we don't want any padding left, so we can cancel that out. And say we didn't want any padding right, then we can cancel that out. But now we're at the point where padding supports two tags, so two sizes, sorry. I can never remember the order because I never do it this way, so I'm just going to do a test order, so 50 pixels and 100 pixels. Whichever one looks bigger we can work out. Actually, let's keep 50 at like 10. And then we can see that the top and the bottom is first. So we want the padding first, so we can say 20 pixels, 0, and so I'm going to make a note here that it's top, then side. Then sides. And so we can get that done. Because we don't want padding on the left because we've already got it fixed to the side. Now we want to make it so we can actually see it, so we can say .top A, and that will only affect links inside the .top div. And we can say colour is white. It's a nice place to start. Allow us to see it. And you see how it faded then. That was because of this part that I was telling you about earlier. So we got this here. Now let's see what we've got. So we got an image of a phone and the image of the email next to it. So we can do that quite easily. I'm just going to style this a bit more. Text decoration is none. So the text decoration is whether it should be underlined or not. So we'll get rid of that. There's no underlining. But maybe you want it to happen when you hover, so we can specify that when you hover over the element we should have text decoration underline, and then when you hover it will underline like a link. So this is fairly basic to start with. I'm going to suggest in here that we create a new folder and just call it something like img for image. And now we need to upload these two images. Right, so I'm back and we've uploaded the email and the phone icon that I've made. And so we're just going to come across into the index, and now we need to be able to distinguish them. So we can say phone, email, then we can say .top.phone, .top.email. Now it's not necessary to say .top before, but what this does is it means that we can use .phone, .email elsewhere and have no effect. And so this is normally the better solution to use, because how we're going to style this is we're going to use the background image rule, And so we can just specify that if we go inside the image folder, we have phone.png. Now there's a few things to note with this. By default, it will try and repeat the background. I mean, I can show you. It should do it. Oh, the background's too big. Let's make the background size 10 pixels. Then you should see it repeat. There you can see all the little phones behind. So you need to kind of work out how big you want your link. So I'm gonna just specify. Let's say we have font size 18 pixels. Then we can say background size is about 20 pixels. And we can say background repeat equals no repeat, which means it won't repeat. So we get the phone there. But for the astute amongst you, you'll notice that it's behind the behind there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add padding to move the text over, because the padding will not affect the background image. So let's add a padding of 20 pixels. And there we are. You can see that now we have the phone next to the number. And so what I'm going to do is just copy this again, paste it here, change it to email, and then save. Pardon me. Notice a similar sort of thing. However, because of the way the phone is shaped, it looks further away than this one. So what we're going to want to do here is change the padding left, but we only want it to be changed on this one. Because this class is lower down than the other class, it should have priority. If it does not, what you can do is very simply you can put important afterwards with an exclamation mark to start, then the word important, and it will say this class is more important than any other class. And you can see that it's spaced it better. Now what I'd like to touch on is top A plus A. Now plus is when something's next to it, so this means that the div after, the link after will be affected by this. So we could add margin left of 10 pixels, which means it should push it away. There we are. I'm going to maybe up it to 15, see how that looks. So it's mainly trial and error, choose what you like the look of. And then that should theoretically really be the top done. We've got the top done. Now we want to go on to the nav bar. So we're going to come back to the index, and back, and then we're going to do, let's call it nav for short. And so if we look at the design, it's broken into a logo section on the left and some links on the right. And so I'm just going to say div class logo, and then div class. I'm going to put right, or we can use links, it's whatever you want to call it. And then we can start putting links out. Now I'm going to add selected to the first one, and then not to the other ones, so we can tell which link they are currently on. I believe that was the only three we had, about and contact, yeah. So this started to get this section set up. I haven't got a logo, so I'm just going to use text. We should see, if you come down here, we've got all of this ready. Now the background colour that was suggested for me to use was black, so I will use black. And on here we'll add background colour. Now this again, we can use the word black, or we can use the hash black. It's up to you, whatever you prefer. You can see that it'll take effect. We can specify now at this point that we should have colour of white, or we can use FFF. And that means that everything apart from things like links will have the colour white by default, just to add to the contrast of the black. And then we can say .nav.logo. Let's have a font size of, let's go 50 pixels. Then we'll have a look. So what does this look like? 50 pixels. Oh, I'm forgetting the inner, aren't I? So div class inner. And this is completely reusable, so missed that. So we can use inner wherever we like, and we'll see that it'll have the same effect. And then carry on. So this is what I like about just showing you how I work, is you can see the trial and error and the bits that are forgotten, because we also try and add hashes into links if you leave them open, because if you click on them now this will break, whereas if you click on them with a hash it just adds a hash to the end. So where are we at? We're at the logo. We're trying to choose a size. I'm going to add the padding in this section, so we can add a bit of padding of about 20 pixels. See how it looks? Yeah, that looks fine. It's up to us now if we want that padding on the left, because again we can specify, I think it was it that way round? Yes, so we can have the same, where we don't have any on the side, which is fine. To do the, pardon me, the section on the right, we're going to look at what we've called it, links, and we're going to say right, okay, let's work through this now. Display inline block to get it displayed inline block. Now we're going to add vertical align top, which means that the divs will be aligned from the top, and you should see they're now next to each other. Now because it's inline block, we'll see that if we look at this, it's only that wide. So what we can do is we should be able to say float right, and that should push it along to the right. It's now floating there, and we're aligning from the top of the page. So we've got this. Now we want to style the links. So we can do that by using this. And we can say background color. Well, I'm assuming we're going to have it the same. I mean, we don't need to specify that, but if we wanted to say change for the selected, we could say background color white, color black. Now, as I explained briefly before, the word color is for text color and background color is for, well, background color. And I'm going to specify that we want these to be white. So we'll have this kind of carry on. Now with links are not defaultly displayed inline block, which is the best way to have a link displayed because it displays horribly otherwise. And so we'll have the ability to use padding now. So we can add some padding of 20 pixels. Then we start to create this effect. We probably don't want the text decoration in, considering we're making it look like buttons, so we can get rid of the underlining. And then you get this kind of effect. I'm not sure what I said in here. Oh, in here I said just underline, but I'm going to go with the button style because it's maybe more popular. And this is the great thing about planning, is you can make a plan and you can see something you like, but then maybe when you come to actually develop it, you can see that something works better, and you want to try and go with that. I mean, if you're working for a client, and obviously it's what they say, but if it's purely for yourself, you may always come up with something, better whilst you're doing it, and don't be afraid to embrace that new idea. And so we're going to try and get these to be the same height as this, which is always a pain. So that's 98 pixels high, so we can just say in here height 98 pixels. That will do the height. Now the width looks strange, so now we can add min width. We say that this is the very minimum we want it to be, but if the text is bigger it can be longer, so we can say min width 150 pixels. You get this sort of design, text align, center. It'll push the text into the center. To get it lower, we can use padding top, and we can say 30 pixels, and that will push it down. And then I'm just going to increase the font size to maybe 25 pixels. You can see how that looks. And then we started getting this, maybe a bit more on the padding top, 35. And you get this kind of design. That's fine. You can tweak that if you don't like it. You can do as you please. Now you've got to design how you want it to look when you hover, because people want to see something when they hover. This could be something as simple as just saying we're going to just underline on hover, or you can try and repeat this. You'll notice that this is also underlining, which you may not want, so that's simple to fix because we applied the rule to every link. So in order to fix it, we just have to be more explicit. So we just say none, and that means that that new class will overrule, so nothing will happen, but these will underline. And so it's up to you. You can have background color change. You can experiment as you please. You know, if you want background color change, you'd literally just write background color green, and when you refresh, it'll go green when you hover over it. So it's just up to you what you like. I enjoyed the simplicity of just the underline. So it's, you know, it's whatever you particularly want. And I say that's good for that. Now we've got this section. Now, let's say there's a few ways to approach it. We could see each one of these as a section, which I think is probably what we'll do, or we could see it as one big content section and put it all inside, which again would work. It's just about adapting your code. It's when it comes to web development, it's about seeing boxes. That's what I keep telling people. And so we're going to try this, and we're going to say div class, and I'm going to call it image, I guess. Div class inner, and then this is going to be the actual image elements. So we've got div class picture. You've got to be creative when you're naming. This is the most fun you'll have. I don't know, unless you enjoy coding, then you'll have a lot of fun, I guess. But so we're trying to break this down, and I'm trying to think about it because I genuinely have not spared any thought for this. So we've got the outer div that we've got the inner, which is holding it, and then we've got a picture one. To be fair, I think what we could do is we could just use the background image on the inner, and then if we wanted to add, say, some text over the top of it, which we might do, yeah, I've just remembered, because we've got the ability to change the image, I'm going to say we will be using some JavaScript. But, pardon me. I don't know, if we wanted text, say over here, like hello, just going to turn the underlining off, we'd say have it in white. And we may struggle to see this properly. I mean, this example is pretty good, but it's not always as easy. And so I'm just going to bring this down here. So what a common practice to do would be to put a div over the top and then make it slightly transparent so you can see the image through, and that makes the text clearer. So that's a possibility if you wanted text, say, on the div. But if you don't, then you probably don't even need the picture. You probably want the we could have left and div class right, and that way we've got the left and the right buttons to switch the image between or whatever we display. I mean, we don't even have to make it work. It's literally just how we make the design. So if you refresh, you'll see absolutely nothing's changed, but we have got the layout and structure there. So we're going to use dot. It's not dot div. What have we called it? Dot image. Dot inner. Because we don't need to do anything, I don't believe, with the image. Background image URL. And so I'm going to have a look on Pixabay. Let's search cow. Yeah, we may even see the picture I use, but I think it was that one. So if we give it a download, now you've got to be careful with sizes because you want it to load fast, but you also want it to be a good resolution. I'm going to stick to that size. It's up to you what you do. And then we can upload it to the server, and I'm just going to rename it to something more simple. I assume it's a JPEG, so that should probably look. Yep, I'm just going to call it cow.jpg. And then in here we can specify image cow.jpg, and if we do refresh we won't see anything still because this has not got a width or a height. So I'm going to make sure the height is 250 pixels. It's probably quite small, but it's enough so we can see it appear. So I mean, you can tweak this. I'm going to say 350. See how that looks. Looks better. Maybe 400. And so it's all about trial and error. You choose the sort of size you want. And then we're going to come down, we're going to say background size is cover. Now cover will make sure it covers the whole background. And so it will make sure that from the edge to the edge is covered. And then you want to maybe background position. We can say center, and it will move the picture to the center. So now you can see that you've got the cow. Again, you may think, well, that's too small, so you could say, oh, okay, we'll try 500. And then you start to get the picture to appear. And then now we can move on to the buttons. Now I have spared absolutely no thought to this, so I have no idea how I'm going to position them, which is going to be great. What have we got to work with left and right? That image dot. I'm going to use inner dot left. This should be the easiest. I'm going to say background. Well, I would if I could spell. Background color. I'm going to keep it at pink because it's a nice, easy, clear to see color. Give it a width of 20 pixels and then a height of 100 pixels. And we should see it appear here. It's not quite how I wanted it to look, so I'm going to make it a bit wider, 70 pixels. And then we've got the button start to form. Add some border radius. And we've got that appear. Now I think what I'm going to do, it's probably the best way to do it, I'm going to actually just write it in here, image inner right, and so it gets the same styles as these and it will appear here. I'm going to say position is absolute, and then I'm going to break it down into image inner left, and then image inner right, and then I'm going to say left is 0 and top is 0. I'm going to keep it at the top for now. and then right is 0. Now what will happen is this will go off the screen to either side here. But what we're going to do is we're going to come to the container, which is inner, and we're going to say position is relative, and it will keep it inside the container. Now I think the best way to do this is just to manually move it. So we can say 150 pixels, already got it, and then not quite, 160, 180, and then when you're happy with that, apply it to the other one. And then I say we probably want 20 pixels away from the sides, and we have them in place. Now how does this work then? Okay, so position absolute means we can specify an absolute position for it, and when we combine that with a parent of position relative, it will only go to the div that it's in. And so when it's absolute, it will be displayed where we tell it. So when we say we want it 20 pixels from the left, 180 pixels from the top, that is where it will be. It's a pretty simple example, if an example and scenario, but if you want to learn more, I'd suggest W3 Schools, have a look at that. But this is the basic placement. And now we've got it where we want it, I'm going to just use RGBA for having the alpha, and we're going to use a white, I think, and we've got then some transparent kind of buttons, and then ultimately we would add the arrowheads on, but I haven't designed any arrowheads yet, so I won't be doing that just yet, but hopefully when this video is released I'll have the arrowheads out and you can use this style to add them in. But now, okay, so we're using divs as buttons, and I've forgotten how you say it. I think role equals button. So because people who are using, yeah, here we are, people who are using things such as screen readers and stuff, it helps people who maybe can't see the page or understand the design, and it tells the browser that these are going to be buttons. And so it's important, if ever you make a div a clickable action, such as this is going to change it, we want to tell the browser that these are buttons. So we just assign them as buttons. And what we can do also, because for the visual aspect, for people who can see, is we can say we want it to be a pointer. And then when you hover over it, it goes to the pointer, and instantly, you know, people will be thinking that's a button. And so that's the next section done. Then the content and the footer are very, very simple. They shouldn't take long at all. So you've got the image, we're going to come down here and say div class content, and we're going to say div class inner, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to say div class footer and div class inner. And then we've got this scenario. And now for SEO you should be using heading tags. I'm bad for not using it, I would have just done this as a div, but theoretically we should use heading tags and paragraph tags and the like, so I'm going to use it. I'll just say hello, and then P, this is my demo website, I hope you like it. And so you've got that, you will see it appear, it'll appear there, pardon me. This has got a slight grey background, so I'm just hopefully, oh, it covers the whole page anyway, so I'm just going to look at what this is. So this is EBEBE. So I'm just going to go into the CSS for .content, .content.inner, because we only want the background to affect this section, and we're going to put it in. I mean, that tends to be the DACCAA grey, so I'll just use that, but use any grey, it's up to you, this is all your choice. Gonna add a padding of maybe 30 pixels. You want to maybe try and keep it consistent, so 30 pixels, 20 pixels. We've used 20 pixels a lot. Maybe 20 pixels would look better. It's your choice. It really makes a difference sometimes, and other times it's hardly even noticeable. And so we can style the heading one. So we can say font size 40 pixels. Then we've got a 40 pixel heading. I mean, it depends. With 80 pixels. It's trial and error. What do you want? Do you want a thinner font? Font weight 300. And it should make it thinner. Yeah. So it is. It's all about trial and error. Choose what you want. And then for the paragraph, then we can say, well, I want my paragraph to be 20 pixels. So it's up to you again. Choose what you like. Did I use paragraph for this? Yeah, I did. Guess it was already 20 pixels. And then if you wanted it to be spaced further away, 10 pixels. Add the margin. So again, this is just about what you think. Now the reason we're adding the padding here and we haven't up here is because it's to keep everything in line, whereas because this has got a different coloured background, it makes more sense to add padding to it. I think padding 20 is too small, so I mean, again, like I said, it is just whatever you think. So I'm going to try 50 pixel padding there to go more extreme, and I prefer that. And then we're just going to finish by doing the footer, and so you can put created by, and then you can add a link to your personal website if you have one. Because that's good practice if you make a website for someone, is to have a link back to yours, because not only will it help you get ranked higher on Google, it will also allow you to find more work. Now we're using target blank because this means it will open in a new tab, because if you specify a target it will open in a new tab. So that's what the targets do. And then very quickly we're just going to finish with the footer. Just have a look at what colour we use there. It's probably, oh, that's that. I've never used that colour before. We're fine, we'll use that colour. Pardon me. And the footer does not go the full width again, so it's .footer.inner. So that's where we put the colour, and we can say background colour. Missed the hash. We've got the hash. And we're going to add the 20 pixels of padding or whatever we decide there. If you wanted it to be in line, push it along. It's whatever you like. And then finally style the link. And that's pretty much the design done. I think to keep this video short, I'm going to go through adding the images to these and making it change background. Well, change background image, so we have like a cat or maybe a pig or whatever. We can keep cycling through different animals. I'll cover the JavaScript in another lesson, so I think we'll have tutorial 3 will continue on from this. But yeah, this is a good place to start. You can set your own colours, change things. Experiment, because that's the way to learn, is to have a go. Don't worry about breaking it, because you can always come back, or if you think you're going to do something which could break it, clone the page first. That's what I always do. If we come down here, right click, and just clone the page, and then we can call it, I don't know, works. So we've got index works, and so we've got a copy of that, and then now we're free to delete things, remove things, change things, and then if that goes wrong, we can always just come back to index works, copy it across, paste it in, and you're back at the same stage. And so never fear about losing things, or at least try and make backups so that you don't. So with this, I have primarily gone through everything. I've not looked externally for anything. I mean, I've not explained a huge amount, but you should hopefully have seen the effect that it's had. So if there's any questions, you can leave it in the comments or email me or speak to me if you know me, and I'll go through anything. But yeah, this is just a simple, quick design, which we wanted to build on significantly from the last one, because the last tutorial you can maybe get the premise of how the design works. We're moving things to sides and stuff. You get the idea. It's just running through using CSS to move divs and stuff. Whereas this, it may have felt like it wasn't attached. Whereas this one is like, hopefully you can start to see websites forming and think, oh well, I've used websites that look worse than this, or as good as, or better but similar. And so the idea is that you can expand your knowledge and hope with this tutorial. Although this was very guided, so hopefully as they move on it will be more, you can take this approach, or if you prefer doing it in this tutorial you can do this. And so this is how I hope this works. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Like I said, if there's any questions, let me know, and I'll try and put another quiz actually in the description, so if you want to have a go at that, you're more than welcome to. Actually, before I finish up, I'm just going to go onto YouTube and look at my last quiz, and I'm going to run through the answers for you and explain why. So the first question is, what is the default width applied to a display block element? And if you remember, display inline block is the size of the element, so it will be only the size of it, and display block is 100%, so that is A. And I have the CSS rule for hash home, which will apply to, and so hash home is, rather than dot, which we primarily use, which would be looking for an ID, so any element with the ID of home it would apply to. In PHP, file mtime will return a Unix timestamp of the last modification time. If you remember, we used this on the CSS file to make sure we didn't have issues with caching. The CSS rule to target .content div will target .content div, but only if it is a div, was one that I heard a lot, which is incorrect. It will target any div inside of .content, so targets all divs inside of .content, which is C, so it's C for that one. And the side does not resize because its width is explicit. I suggest what may solve this, and I suggest that adding breakpoints may solve this. Now I haven't gone through breakpoints because it's kind of okay for now. But you can see when you get on mobile that this is going to be an issue, and this disappears, and there is a reason for that. But most of it's responsive enough for desktop. I doubt it would work on many mobile, maybe on tablet. But I'll go over in the next tutorial how to get this to change when they're clicked on, what breakpoints are and how we can use them in this design. And well, it's just going to be basically finishing up this design. So thank you for watching.